This Week in Pharmacy. So, a recently published study in the British Journal of Clinical Pharmacology showed that multiple small overdoses of acetaminophen, which is the active ingredient in Tylenol, is actually more harmful and more fatal than one huge overdose, which is kind of surprising because the small overdoses they're talking about are, just a little bit over the maximum daily dose, whereas a single large overdose they're talking about way past the daily dose just once. It was actually found in the study that 37.3% of people that were just getting those multiple small overdoses, which they called staggered overdoses, died, versus only 27.8% of people who got one single overdose. So it's interesting, and it's kind of unexpected. So this just remains another reason why people should be careful with how much acetaminophen they're taking. They should watch how much they're getting in not only Tylenol, but other products that contain acetaminophen, such as Excedrin, that contains acetaminophen. If they're taking things like Norco or Vicodin prescription, that contains acetaminophen. Fioricet, a commonly used prescription migraine medication, that contains acetaminophen. So you just want to be really careful. Read all the labels on the back of your boxes at home, on your prescription labels. See if it contains acetaminophen, and just make sure to stay under the 4,000 milligram a day maximum. So, yeah, that's just interesting that it's more deadly in multiple overdoses. So, moving on. After 11 years of study, the Heart Protection Study, which is a huge study that involves about 20,000 patients, it showed that statin cholesterol medications such as Zocor, Lipitor, things along that line, not only are they extremely effective in preventing cardiovascular related deaths, but now we also see long-term safety data. They're not only effective, but they're safe. There is no link to anything like cancer or any kind of long-term chronic illnesses that you start hearing about a decade or so after a drug's been on the market. So that's good to know. That's really, really good. But just as with any drug, statins do have a lot of harmful side effects. They are rare, they don't happen to everybody, but they do happen. And so when a physician is choosing to put a patient on a medication, they should still use individual caution and base it upon the patient's individual prescription and medical history. So it was reported in the New York Times Well blog that they have on their website that there are 4 types of medications that have been truly linked to the amount of hospitalizations that happen with older Americans every year. These 4 categories alone equate to 2/3 of hospitalizations. The first one, which isn't surprising, is Coumadin. Coumadin is a well-known old blood thinner that's been around for a long time. It's very effective and very potent. Therefore, it has a lot of side effects, one of which is fatal hemorrhaging. So, 1/3 of all hospitalizations of elderly people are due to Coumadin or are highly linked to Coumadin. So that's not a surprising statistic, but it's still like, wow, that's a lot. Number 2 is insulin injections. Just, your regular 3 times a day, couple units of insulin type of injection. If you don't eat or you're getting a lot of units, you're going to bottom out and pass out, and a lot of bad things can happen. So that's actually linked to 14% of hospitalizations in older Americans. Number 3 is drugs known as antiplatelet agents. These include aspirin and Plavix and other things like that. So they are linked to 13% of all hospitalizations because they increase the risk for bleeding. And 4th on this list is oral diabetic agents that dramatically change blood sugar levels and can cause a person to bottom out if they don't eat, kind of in a similar way to the insulin. That is linked to 11% of all hospitalizations. So this is kind of a staggering statistic, but even though it is a lot, if a person's already on it, they're doing well on it, then there's no reason to stop them, but it is a reason for physicians to use caution, especially if it's the first time an older person is going to be put on a medication like this. So it's just to, use cautiously, not stop, not, lower therapy, just be cautious, and for the patients to watch for any signs and symptoms, especially with the ones that affect how thin your blood is and how many platelets are in your blood. Be careful, watch for any excessive signs of bruising or bleeding, things like that. So, and with the oral diabetic agents and the insulin injection, make sure if you're taking them or using it that you're eating. So, just use with caution. So, moving on. I'm rambling today. Sorry. So in the most recent issue of the New England Journal of Medicine, an author wrote a letter to the editor, which was interesting. He was voicing his concern on the new blood thinner Pradaxa, which is supposed to take over for Coumadin because it's a lot safer and you don't have to get your blood monitored all the time. But he voiced his concern, and it is a legitimate concern, that Pradaxa can be deadly if a person is in a traumatic injury, because there's no way to reverse Pradaxa's effects once it happens. Yes, it doesn't stay in your body as long as like Coumadin does. It only stays in your body for a day, but if you get into a huge car crash, there's no way to stop the bleeding. So you want to weigh your pros and cons when starting it. His concern is legitimate, like I said. So, yeah, that's just an interesting letter to the editor. And if you are on Coumadin, I wouldn't be so fast to push your doctor to put you on Pradaxa. I'd let him make that decision. So, and last but not least, exciting news, Lipitor is going generic this Thursday, December 1st, 2011. That's very exciting news for a lot of people because it's, a very, very good, effective statin cholesterol drug that people have been waiting for a long time for it to go generic. Well, it's finally time. You can expect to see a decrease in co-payments within the next month or two, as well as a change on the label of your bottle. The name of it is going to be atorvastatin. That's the generic name of Lipitor. So if you do see a change in the next month, don't be surprised. That's what's going on. And the CBS Evening News stated that it was going to be an average drop in about $15 a month copay. So, alright, well, that's it for This Week in Pharmacy. This has been RX Help, advice from a person on the other side of the pharmacy counter. Bye!